Hi, good afternoon, everyone. So I have problems with the other channel, so I'm using this one. Can you all hear me? Good afternoon. There's a chat. There's supposed to be a chat. Is there a chat? Hello? So if you go to the chat, are you able to see a chat? So I'm just sending over some of the links so that people could hop on and then I'll start. Sorry about that. Okay, so let me see if I can get this rectified a bit. Everyone, sorry for the mix up with the links. I am just trying to send out the links all over again. In the meantime, is there a comment option or there's no comment option as it is? I probably would have to, if I'm not getting to do the comment option, I am trying to see if I can get it on. Let me see. Okay. I am trying to see how to get on the chat. Let me see how this works. Okay, so I really want to just turn on this chat so that I can get on with this. Let me see how this works. Okay, so good afternoon. Thanks for joining me. I am sorry for all the mix-up with the links, but apparently I am unable to use that account because there's not enough subscribers to the account yet, and it was inactive. So this is my other account, and this is what I'll be using today. So welcome, but I think I'm going to, if it is possible, that we can probably switch over to Google Meet where I'll be able to chat. It might be a bit easier to do that. Google Meet or Zoom. So this is, y'all can take the Zoom password live stream so that, so this is it for the Zoom for all those that are here. The Zoom password is, one second, let me see if I can find it. Because Mm. Oh, I got the live chat. I now see it. But it is saying it is disabled. How do I get that to turn on? Is it possible to see the chat now or no? Okay, I realize what I have to do now because I set it as made for kids. They're saying that I cannot comment because of that. Okay, so is there now a feature to be able to chat or no? Anybody seeing comments? Uh, a feature to chat now? Is there a feature to comment or still no feature that allowing you all to comment? If it is, you can make a comment. If not, I'm thinking that we should just probably move over to Zoom where so the meeting link for Zoom is 504-823-7189. One second. Hey, Lamini. Hi. The chat is there? Oh, y'all, I'm so sorry. I finally got it. Was a lot. Okay, so today we're going to look at map work. And because I chose to do map work, because map work is one of the sections in geography that gives students a lot of problems. There are four main sections, including the map work section for your geography exam. And the map work section is it actually carries the most marks. Do you all know that? Are you all familiar with that? Have you all looked at the structure of the geography paper? So if you look at the structure of the geography paper, you would notice that the out of the four sections, the map skills is the heaviest weighted section of all, right? And the main areas that tend to give you all trouble, or the areas that you tend not to like, is those questions that actually ask you all to describe landscape, or to discuss the relief patterns, discuss the roads, vegetation, which is usually questions H, I, J, K on the paper, and those papers are usually more you have to explain, or you have to tend to give a description of the features. So we are looking at landscape descriptions, and today we're going to look at drainage patterns and settlements and distribution. So before we go into drainage patterns, because I'm doing the live, I'm seeing that I'm unable to actually share a screen until I think I have a certain amount of followers as well. So the next time I do this, I'll have to rethink um, the way, but at this point, I just really want to get on with what I had planned for today. So let us look at drainage. So when you hear the term drainage, what comes to mind? And I want this to be an interactive session. So you can type in the chat. Okay, so one person is saying rivers and patterns. One is saying runoff and removal of water, rivers. Okay, so drainage patterns really has to do with, of course, the river, right? And if you look at the drainage patterns on a map, it basically asks you to identify a particular shape or pattern. So when we talk about drainage, when you look at rivers, you all ever heard the term drainage basin? So what is the drainage basin? The drainage basin is that area that is drained by a main river and its tributaries. So on the map, you are now looking or you are identifying the drainage that you would have learned in theory. So on this particular map that you would have, let us say that we are looking at this particular map. Are you all able to see this? You're seeing this map? So this map is the penal map, right? So on the penal map, this is the map of Trinidad, and this was the last, it's a bit blurry, the last map of Trinidad, and the last question that you all got that was actually, that involved map work was actually a 2019 map. And that 2019 map was penal. It was a Trinidad map. So when you are looking at the map that you get, or if you have a particular map, right, there are some key elements of a map. So that's the first place I want to start. What are the key elements of a map? So this is a map. Are you all seeing the map any better now? Right. So you have a key. What else you would have on the map? Apart from the key, and the key is a very important piece of information. So there are 5 elements on a map. So you all can write down this. There are 5 elements to a map. A scale, very good, Sebastian. Emma said a key, a scale. So we know you have to have a scale, you have to have a key. What else is important on that map? Well, there's a north arrow, right? And where's usually north? Right? To the top of the map is usually north, right? So you have a key or a legend, you have the title of the map, you have the scale of the map. So the title is very, very important. And why do you think the title of the map is very important? What key information you can get from the title of a map? Okay, in the chat. So the title of the map will give you its location. So for example, if you have a map, very good, Emma, so that you know what area you are observing. So if you have a map that is from Trinidad, you should be familiar with, okay, the types of rocks that we have in Trinidad, what is the main dominant rock type. For example, you may have a map that is from Jamaica. Anybody know the difference between a map that is in Jamaica, a map that is from Jamaica, a map that is from Trinidad and Tobago? In terms of drainage, let us say you're looking at drainage and rock type. What would you say in terms of Jamaica versus Trinidad? And let us add in, let us say, St. Vincent. Okay, so Chloe is saying Jamaica has caste systems. So a Jamaican map is heavily composed a lot of times of limestone rocks. So when you look at that map, sometimes you would see the rivers are indicated by blue lines on the map. So if you look at your key, and if you all have a map, if you have a map in front of you, or you have a map reading book that you use, right? Limestone maps, right? So Jamaica has a lot of limestone. So when you get a map that is titled Jamaica, you should automatically think, oh, this map I should look for underground drainage. I should look for the presence of underground drainage, right? Whereas a map that is based in St. Vincent, we know that that area or St. Vincent is a volcanic island, and volcanic islands will have a different type of drainage pattern. They're going to have what we call a radial pattern, whereas a limestone a limestone map set in Jamaica may have what we call a trellis pattern, where there's alternating bands of hard and soft rock, right? So that is some key things you need to observe or to remind yourself about the title of the map. So the title of the map gives you its location. And a lot of the times the map that you get is set in the Caribbean, which means that you should know, okay, where is the Lesser Antilles, where is the Greater Antilles. So anybody know the main difference in terms of the Lesser Antilles Islands and the Greater Antilles Islands? So you all can type in the chat because I want you all to interact with each other. Okay, so the Lesser Antilles is also known as a volcanic island arc, right? Meaning that the majority of islands in the Lesser Antilles is composed of volcanic rock, or they have a high presence of volcanic activity, and that will, of course, volcanoes on their islands, and that will give us the presence of radial drainage pattern. Whereas those islands to the top that are in the Greater Antilles, those are larger islands. And because they are larger islands and they are in the Greater Antilles, a lot of them are limestone in nature. So that is one of the key ways to remember. So you remember the Lesser Antilles are volcanic in nature, and the Greater Antilles is limestone in nature, right? So that is the title. Then you have the scale. So if you look on the map for your exam, you would notice that you have sometimes two main scale. You have the scale on top here. It's very tiny. Are you all able to see that? This scale is a 1 in 25,000 scale. And then you have below here, are you all able to see the scales at the bottom? So the scale at the bottom of the map is what we call a line scale, right? So you have a statement scale to the top and a line scale to the bottom of the map. You all are not able to see it. Nothing at it. What about here? You're seeing that? Let me see if I put the light away. Is this any better? Okay. So the line scale is to the bottom of the map, and you're going to have a statement scale to the top of the map, right? On this map, you have a 1 in 25,000 map. And then you would see that at the bottom, you have two types of line scale. So the line scale, one is marked off in kilometers and meters, and the other one is measured in miles and feet. That is very, very important, because when you get a question to measure distances on the map, it's usually going to give you the particular unit to measure the the line or the distance on the map. So if they asked you to measure the distance in kilometers, you are measuring on the kilometers lines linear scale. But if they ask you for it in miles, then you will look for the actual line scale that is sectioned off in miles or represented in miles. And likewise, if they ask you for feet, everybody understand that? Am I going too fast? If I'm going too fast, let me know. Okay, good. So Emma, I'm seeing Emma replying, right? So you have the scales. Good. Good, Matthew. Very good. So the five elements of the map are you're going to have your title, you have your border, you have a scale, you have a key or a legend, and a north arrow. And those things are very crucial on any map. So today, as I was saying, that since we are now starting off, I'm going to look at the questions that require more description and explanation, since a lot of you all tend to have problems with those types of questions, and the actual skills are easier to learn in a couple of classes. So those questions that are weighted like 6 marks and 4 marks tend to give you a bit more problems. So let us go into drainage, right? So I want you all to look at describing drainage patterns. So when you describe drainage patterns, so you can write, so describing drainage patterns, the drainage system includes the following. So we know that a drainage basin is an area that is drained by a main river and its tributaries, and therefore the drainage system on a map will comprise of a main river and its tributaries. So you can write that. So the draining systems include its main rivers and its tributaries. The drainage system will also include a drainage pattern, and that drainage pattern will vary based again on its rock type and the relief of the land. So you have three main drainage patterns. There are more, but for the purpose of your Csec exam, there are three main drainage patterns. You have a dendritic drainage pattern, you have radial drainage pattern, and you have trellis. And then, of course, on the map, you will see the drainage density. And drainage density has to do basically with the amount of rivers that you see on the map. So whether you see that there's a high drainage density, a high drainage density just means that the map has several main rivers and tributaries. Are you all following me, or am I going too fast? Am I going fast, or you all are okay with that? Okay, good. So when you are interpreting drainage from a map, I want you to ask yourself these questions. So write it down. One, what is the direction of flow of the river? One, what is the direction of flow of the river? Two, write down this. Are there many rivers or streams or just a few? So are there many rivers or streams or just a few? All this is asking you is whether you see a high drainage density or whether you see a low drainage density. Everybody following that? if you didn't get what I said and you want me to say it over, you can always type in the chat and I can go over, right? The third thing I want you to write down is, are there seasonal streams? Are there seasonal streams? And just now we will get to describing each one of them, right? So are there seasonal streams? What seasonal streams mean? Imagine for us in the tropical region, right? We have two seasons. We have a dry season and we have a wet season. So in the dry season, sometimes the rivers, they actually dry up. So we call that seasonal streams, right? Some rivers actually dry up because they are smaller than others. The next question I want you to ask yourself is the area well drained? Is the area well drained? You all have that? Is the area well drained? The next point that I want you to write down is, what drainage pattern am I seeing? What drainage pattern am I seeing? So in other words, identify the drainage pattern. The next and the last point that I want you to write down is, are there any disappearing streams? Are there any disappearing streams? So how would you be able to tell whether they are disappearing streams? Again, remember we said based on the location, you will have an idea. So if it's in a limestone environment, what happens on the map? Sometimes you see the blue line and then the line automatically disappears, and then you would see the blue line continues somewhere else on the map. So that is an indication, or it shows you that there is an disappearance stream. Prostitute, no, what are you saying? No, in with respect to. So everybody get that? Right? So these disappearing streams, they happen because, of course, remember limestone areas, they are what we call, they can be easily dissolved, right? And because of rainfall reacting with that limestone, and if you remember the process of carbonation, what happens, you can have what we call sinkholes. So sinkholes appear on the surface of limestone areas, and what you have now is rivers that actually go into those depressions that we call sinkhole, and they result in what you refer to as these disappearing streams. And you see that on the map. Sometimes they actually tell you there's a depression in the key, or sometimes you will see they will tell you that you will see the blue line. There's a missing portion of the blue line, and then it reappears. Everybody understand those questions? Okay, so let us move along now. What is the direction of flow when you how can you tell the direction of flow from a map? Anybody? So anybody, how would you be able to identify the direction of flow on the map? So this question, right, what we're doing, drainage, they would often ask you to describe 4 characteristics of drainage patterns found on the map between a particular area. So this is how you would answer it. So you have those key questions in your head, and one of the key questions is, right, to identify the direction of flow. How do you identify the direction of flow from the map? Anybody? You all can put your comments in the chat. How do you? Very good. So Isa said from highland to lowland. So one of the things that you look for, you can look for the high point and you look for the low point, or the highland or the lowland. All rivers start or begin in the mountains, and they all end or they flow to the sea. Very good, Sebastian and Emma, right? So look for mountains and streams that feed into river. Good. So you look for the highland areas, then you identify the sea because the sea is usually the end, right? Or the mouth of the river. And sometimes if you don't see a sea, you can look for a lake because a lake will be sometimes on a lower area. And if you don't have any indication of those things, you're going to have to look at the contours on the map. So the contours where the rivers are actually passing through is going to give you an indication of height. The higher the contour numbers, of course, the higher the land. The lower the contour numbers, the flatter or gentler the land, right? And another way that you can identify the flow of the river is that you would see the river begins to widen. So it sometimes starts as a very narrow stream to the top. And then, of course, at the bottom, you would see it sort of widens or spreads, or it gives you this more fan type of look to the bottom as it flows into the sea. Because sometimes, remember, you have more deposition and you have this deltering effect. So you look for where the river actually opens out and has a wider volume of water. Everybody get that? Okay. So the other description that you would give or identifying characteristics would be the drainage pattern, right? So the direction is one. Now we move on to the pattern. So we identify the three types. So you have dendritic, you have radial, and you have trellis. Anybody you all want to give me some comments on the three of them? What is a dendritic pattern, a radial pattern, a trellis pattern, and what are the controls that allow in terms of rock type that allows for the differences in the drainage pattern? So we sort of touched some of them already. So let's start with dendritic. Very good, Sebastian. So radial is on the volcan is usually formed in an area where there's volcanoes, right? And you would usually see that it radiates from a central area of highland. So that central area of highland could be the top of a volcanic cone, or sometimes you have some mountains as well where you can have radial drainage, right? Depending on the rock type there and the shape of the mountain. So it is basically where rivers flow away from a central area of highland. And it's usually described as the spokes in a bicycle or the spokes of an umbrella. So that is the actual shape of the drainage pattern, right? Am I saying dendritic is one that looks like veins, right? Or kind of like the branches of a tree. Good. So dendritic, on the other hand, is where you have rocks that are uniform. So in areas where you have rocks that are uniform, meaning rocks that are of the same type, and the land is more gently sloping, you have a main stream and you have tributaries that feed into the rivers at an acute angle or less than 90 degrees, and it forms a tree-like pattern like the branches branches joining the main trunk, right, of a tree, and or as she said, veins. Everybody get that? So you have to remember that dendritic is the uniform pattern and it looks like this, the shape of a tree. Then you have trellis. What is a trellis pattern? Trellis. I am only seeing a few people commenting. Emma, Sebastian. I would like to hear from the rest of you all. So trellis, anybody have an idea of the trellis pattern? Okay, so the trellis pattern is where you have areas of a combination of rocks. So you have hard and soft rock. The rocks, they are not very uniform and they actually meet the channel, the main channel or the main river at right angles. So they have alternating layers of hard and soft rock or rocks, some rocks that are resistant to weathering and some that weathers easily. And this is what develops this trellis pattern. So the trellis pattern gives you a look where it's actually at right angles, right? Right angles. So 90 degrees where it meets the actual main river. Everybody understand that? Yes, Isa. Very good. Right? So that is what the three drainage patterns are. Now let us look at drainage density. So drainage density refers to what? We just spoke about drainage density earlier. What is the drainage density? So when you look at a map, you're going to identify the flow of the river, the direction of flow of the river. You're going to identify the drainage pattern. And remember, most time they ask you for. So another one that you can identify is the drainage density. And the drainage density, basically, you remember when you had those key questions? What key question is that drainage density going to address? It is going to address the question of are there many rivers and streams or just a few? So are there many rivers and streams or just a few? So where's density shown on the map? So drainage density on a map, you are looking at the actual river or you look to see how many rivers, main rivers you can identify on the map, and that will be able, in that way, you would be able to identify whether there is a low drainage density. So when you are describing drainage density, there are three key things that you need to look for. So you are looking for whether there is a low drainage density. So you can make note of this. You are noting whether you have a high drainage density and you are looking at whether there is a moderate drainage density, right? So how do you determine this? You will look on your map, you look for the main rivers that you see, and if you see, of course, several main rivers and tributaries, right, or several drainage patterns. So, for example, you may have, let's say you have radial pattern mixed with some trellis, right? You know that that is more than one drainage pattern on the map, but you are seeing several rivers, right? So you have several rivers that you see on the map identifies the drainage. If it's low, right? Well, a map that has a low drainage density, we often say that that map is also not very well drained, or the area is not very well drained. And an indication of a map that is not very well drained is an area or areas that are has a lot of swamp or marsh vegetation or mangroves, right? Those areas that are marked off with a lot of swamps on the map, marsh areas or mangrove areas, they tend to have little or no rivers running through that area. So there is a low drainage density, or it is poorly drained. Whereas an area that has a high density would be indicative on the map by the presence of several rivers, and it is usually very well drained. So I'm going to try to pull up this map again. And from this map, if you notice this area here, are you all able to see this large blue area here? Right, that large blue area on this map, right, the blue areas, that area is actually swamps. It is swampland. So if you look in your key, it will show you that that area is swamp. And because we really don't have a lot of drainage on this map, you can see that this map is poorly drained or has a low drainage density. So if you look at this point here, are you all able to see my hand? This is the actual river here, right? And you see how narrow that is here, right? And that is practically the only area on this map that has rivers. Do you all understand that? Is that clearer about the drainage patterns in terms of drainage density? Okay, good. So that shows you it's low. So low density is where it lacks the presence of several rivers. High density is where you have a lot more rivers on the map, and you can see that maps that has a lot of mangrove or swamp vegetation, as in the penal map. If you have that map, you can look at it. You will notice that the drainage there is poor because there are a lot of swamps and not many rivers on the map. Okay. And at the same time, you can talk about the well-drained areas being well-drained if it's high, and if it's low, it is poorly drained. Let us talk about the rock types. So in areas that you have impermeable rocks, what is the difference between permeable and impermeable? Do you all know the difference between permeable rocks and impermeable rocks, and how that influences the pattern, the drainage density? Sorry, permeable rocks and impermeable rocks. What are permeable rocks? So impermeable rocks, right, does not allow water to go through it. Permeable rocks, very good, Chloe, not necessarily store, right? Porous rocks are rocks that store, but permeable rocks are rocks that allow water to pass through the rocks, right? Porous rocks are the rocks that contain pores. That is why it's called porous. So actually, water is able to be stored in those rocks. But impermeable rocks are rocks that are difficult for water to actually pass through, right? So very good, Nicola, right? Permeable rocks absorb water. So with the drainage density, what you need to remember, impermeable rocks and rocks that are on steep slopes and where you have high rainfall often leads to high drainage densities. So when you have a lot of rainfall, if you are explaining rainfall contributes to high drainage densities, right? Steep slopes as well because the water runs down the slope very fast. And of course, impermeable rocks, whereas permeable rocks like sandstone that allows water to pass through it or to absorb through it, um, gentler slopes and low rainfall tend to have low drainage density because it is absorbed or it goes through the soil faster. Everybody get that? So that is drainage density. I will stop there today because I planned to start at 6, but I had some difficulties with getting everything started. So what I will do is we can have another session this week if you all are up for it, where I can probably generate a Zoom password and it would be better that we can show the map where I can show you all the map and stuff like that. Because I actually plan to do drainage and population settlements and distribution, population distribution and settlements. But I will Amaya and Emma. Okay, great. So do you all want me to? I will upload this on the channel. I will try to upload it on the School of Geography channel. You'll follow the School of Geography channel and I will post it there and I will probably try to create. You can let me know what schools you're from and where you got the information so that I can probably send it again. Where you're from, just type in where you all are from, where what school you go to. It was nice having you all. Did you all understand anything? Okay, Matthew, good. Amaya, Mason Hall, good. Oh, Bishop's nice to all the Tobago folks. Okay, so what I would do, I would get the School of Geography um, channel sorted out, so you all could probably subscribe over there. And I believe once I get a certain number of subscription, Providence, very good, I would be able to share. So tell your friends, and I will share that next day. Okay, thanks again. Bye, Amaya. Bye, Nicola. Bye.